Today, we have a very special guest on the nature of mental health. I am joined by Brad Ryan, author of the book Grandma Joy and Me, A Journey of Healing One National Park at a Time. In 2015, Brad took his 85-year-old Grandma Joy camping in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park so that she could see, and even climb, her very first mountain. After visiting 30 national parks, their story went viral and captured the hearts of a nation and the world. In 2023, they completed their circuit at National Park of American Samoa, their 63rd and final national park destination. Over those 7.5 years, Brad and Grandma Joy healed their once broken relationship and, in the process, modeled for us how healing, both connections to each other and to ourselves, does not have to fit neatly in a box. It can be done outside, in the presence of grandeur, of nature, and a good fire. Please join me as Brad and I discuss what part nature played in their story of intergenerational healing, connection, and personal growth. Welcome to The Nature of Mental Health, the podcast where we explore how time outdoors supports emotional well-being, resilience, and healing. I'm your host, Will Henry, clinical social worker, nature-informed therapist, and founder of Riverstone Mental Health Collective. Join me as we dive into practical tools, meaningful conversations, and inspiring stories that help us reconnect with the natural world and ourselves. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Welcome back to The Nature of Mental Health. Today we're joined by Brad Ryan, author of the newly published book, Grandma Joy and Me, A Journey of Healing, One National Park at a Time. On a remarkable journey of personal and intergenerational healing, Brad and his grandmother visited all 63 U.S. national parks over the course of 7 years. At 93, Grandma Joy, who until this journey had never seen a mountain or an ocean, is the eldest person ever to do so. So thank you so much for being here, Brad. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Your journey was such an amazing read. I want to first thank you for sharing this with the world and for sharing your personal story in the book. What started as a trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park ended with you touching a whole lot of lives in a very deep way. What do you think of like the popularity of this story?
I think that there's a hunger in the country and probably the world for stories that give us hope about living a life of adventure at every age. And I think that the themes of the book are just the ties that bind all of us. Most of us have dysfunctional families in some way, shape, or form. Most of us have grappled with issues around estrangement and forgiveness. It's been a very difficult word for me to say in my life, or at least it used to be. And I just think that there's a nostalgia that we all have for grandparents. I mean, most of us had at least one really impressionable grandparent in our lives, right, that whether they're here or not, it creates this this warm, fuzzy nostalgia and this longing for that relationship. And so I think it depends on the person, and it might be all of the above for other readers. But right, certainly watching a 93-year-old woman reach all 63 U.S. national parks, it just reframes in our minds, I think, the way we perceive aging in general. There's so much gloom and doom and dread that's ingrained in our minds because of where we find ourselves today with, anti-aging cream and all this stuff. And it's like maybe there's another way to look at it.
Absolutely, and you. Grace is the word that keeps coming to mind. You're giving so much grace to Grandma Joy, to the elderly, and the fact that they, it doesn't have to be this doom and gloom, like you said, end of the life. There can be new and exciting every day, and you all have certainly proven that.
If the grandparent is willing to go along for the ride, that's the major.
That is major. There. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just like personal thing here is I grew up camping in the Smoky Mountains. I'm originally from Tennessee. And so every year with my father and brother is huge like memories of him. My first steps were even taken there in Elkmont Campground. It's amazing. So when I was reading the book and that's where it all started, I was like, it's such a special like connection. And then, the arc of your story in the book just resonated so much with me. So it was truly something to read.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, the Smokies that was the first national park I visited as well. And the most common question I get on the road is, what's your favorite U.S. national park? And almost impossible to answer that, but it has to be
Right.
the Great Smoky Mountains for me, just because that's where it all began
Right.
as a child and with this journey that I detail in the book.
Yeah. Oh, you went there as a child too, huh?
Yeah, because my sister was a clogging champion. She was
Okay.
a, depending on where you're from, you might not even know what that is, but it's
Right.
a type of dance.
Hmm.
And she was very good at it. And the national championships were always held in Pigeon Forge. So we had to
Yeah.
go every year because she was so good at clogging.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at
That's
least the Smokies were there too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Very nostalgic for me. I mean, I went to Yosemite last year, which was like a different kind of wow, but the nostalgia of the Smokies for me was really uh, there's something there. And then for you to
Oh,
start the story,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And a
um,
healing energy there too.
oh yeah,
And I hear that from a lot of people that, and yes, you can feel it in the Grand Canyon. You can feel it. Every landscape to me has an energy,
mm,
and lessons to teach you if you're paying attention, if you're open to it.
right.
But yes, the Smokies, I think it just hits you in your face.
It's such a yeah, it's a wonderful place. I
Yeah.
wanted to go back to the beginning. So you're a vet, right? You studied mammalian biology in South Africa. You through hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, which is not a small task. Um, how do you think over the course of your life, how has nature inspired you? And is there like a nature origin story?
There is a nature origin story, and I discuss it throughout the book, and it's really the reason why the national parks became the journey for my grandmother and I, because to a large extent, the whole paternal side of my family was connected to nature, but it was in a way that was not my preferred way, like hunting
Mm,
and to some extent fishing too. But I just wanted to be out in the woods. I just wanted to observe animals, and if I had a camera, that would have been my preference.
right.
But we did grow up on 10 acres of land, and I knew where the flying squirrels were, and it was just a magical place where I could disconnect from, especially as the years went by. It was a place where I could escape from the bullying
Mm,
and from the abuse that I began to endure at the hands of my father. So the to me, it was the non-judgmental space. It was I didn't think of it that way, of course, but it was just
at the time,
safety.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
safe, but it was also healing. And my grandmother was the one woman in the family who wasn't afraid to take her shoes off and get into the stream and lift up
Love that.
rocks very gently to see what was underneath once the silt settled. And it became a metaphor in the book for my inquiry into the generational trauma that I always suspected, but I didn't have any tangible answers for why people were suffering and why they were handing that down through the generations. But at the time, just being a really young boy before life started throwing its challenges and obstacles and insults at me, it was
Mm,
just magical. I had a little Cool Whip container that I filled with water, and the snails would go in there, and the crawdads would go in there, and
yep.
the hellgrammites, and whatever I could find, and that just unlocked all the magic of life for me,
I
just
love
in
that.
that little Cool Whip container and what we were finding in the stream. And of course, I put everything back into the
Hmm.
stream, and away I went. And there's no doubt that's a through line directly from childhood into becoming a wildlife veterinarian. And yeah, as the years went by and life got harder and harder, and I was struggling with, you know, just as a gay man from a small town that had experienced so much homophobia and
Hmm.
just viciousness, I took off on the Appalachian Trail at age 27, really grappling with this idea of like, what's a real man? Are you a real
Mm,
man? Apparently, I need to grow my beard long and watch my toenails turn black and fall off and smell like hell to prove to myself that I am indeed a man, a real man. And
mm,
obviously that happened, and I made it all the way to the end. But the healing of the landscapes that I walk through once again, I mean, I was experiencing real time healing in the community that I had out there, but I was
Mm.
also just the sound of this, like setting up camp by the stream, and that sound taking me back to the very beginning. It just, I think we lose it. We lose a lot. We so often lose the magic that we feel for life. That comes so easily when we're young.
Yes. The curiosity, that wonder, that excitement, like you're saying.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it can take, and just the sounds of the forest can take you back to when you didn't have all these uh, deadlines
Emails and
and
alerts and
all of it. Yeah, all the
all of it.
chaos.
Yeah. Chaos. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point about, like, setting up camp near the stream, bringing you back to this time in your life where you felt more free, more curious, excited, full of wonder.
Less
That
anxious.
really, yeah, it's something. So the book, it starts in a very dark time in your life. Right. You talk about being in vet school, and I guess my questions, what made you at that time kind of turn? I mean, you've already kind of answered, but if you could be more explicit about what made you turn at that point to, nature, to work on your mental health.
Well, I think the the sense of entrapment that I felt in vet school, that pressure cooker,
Mm.
which everybody experiences it. It's a the stakes are high in medicine, so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
program must be rigorous, and that wasn't so much the issue for me. I think it was there were a few variables. One was that I had through hiked for 6 months before I started that program.
Right.
So I had tasted the freedom of the woods for
Mm.
6 months, and I knew, quote unquote, what real life was. And that there's and it's sort of the psychology of of Into the Wild as well. Like Chris
Mm.
McCandless really struggled with going back to the 9 to 5 social structures of the human social
Gotcha.
structures, and I think that I kind of I felt more I was longing for the forest again, and there was no way to get back to it because there were exams coming up
Yeah.
every single week. And so I entered vet school feeling very confident. I was older than most of the students that were in my class. I was 31 when I started.
Okay.
When I talked about the AT in my admissions letter, and I used it as a sort of a metaphor for the advantages of taking the long road in life, that you could fly from
Mm.
Georgia to Maine, but you would not have the abundance that comes with through hiking for 6 months.
Mm.
And that I had also taken this really long, circuitous route to get into vet school at age 31. So I felt, and I'd always been top of my class. And then I ended up in the largest vet school in the United States with 160 plus other students who were maybe not wired exactly like me, but were definitely the type A, perfectionistic, used to being, head of the class.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, I didn't think of it that way, but I was I was at the Olympics now, and only 3 people can stand on the podium. And I didn't know really how much of my self-worth was tied to academic success
Yeah.
until I didn't have it anymore.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
wasn't failing out by any means, but I wasn't getting straight A's. And for me, that was a failure.
Right.
And I turned on myself.
Mm.
And almost from the beginning, I mean, by the end of the first semester of freshman year, I had gone from test anxiety and feeling increasingly more depressed to suicidal ideation that just wouldn't go away. I couldn't shake it. And I meant it. And there were times when I, indulged in it to the point that it felt euphoric.
Wow.
And it was the only thing that felt good, was the idea that I could make the pain go away. I had that control. And it was me. And meanwhile, I'm putting on the happy face, and
Yeah.
I graduated with the senior superlative of the best sense of humor in the class. Like, I was the funny guy, and out of 160 plus students, I was the one that made people laugh the most, which is just, it blew me away that people saw me that way. But that's the
It's
masks that
the
we
mask you were wearing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that by the time I got to fourth year, I had been dealing with that for so long, and I had been disconnected from family who knew me and loved me unconditionally. And I had been disconnected from this source of healing in the
Mm-hmm.
great outdoors for so long that when a second year veterinary student named David Hilton on our campus, I didn't know him well, but we were Facebook friends, and yeah, he committed suicide. And I found out on a Friday morning, late September. And it just was this moment of reckoning because I'd been driving home from study rooms for 4 years, looking myself in the mirror, telling myself I wasn't worthy of living. And, you know,
Yeah.
suddenly I'm looking in the mirror and I'm realizing what a thin line it is between wanting to die and making that ultimate irreversible decision to do
Mm-hmm.
it. And I knew deep in my heart that I wanted to live. That, I mean, I felt all the things that you're supposed to feel in life: joy and presence and the miracle of it all, and connection. I had
Yeah.
all of it on the AT, and I keep telling this joke. It didn't turn out. I said it nonchalantly one day, and then it became this like bump thing that I do every night, where it's like, because I'm usually in bookstores, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
pull any self-help book off the shelf, and I doubt you're going to find anybody recommending that you take an 85-year-old woman camping to pull yourself out of a mental health crisis.
Right.
And yet, for me, it just was the most logical thing to do, because nature is where I fill my cup. And once again, I think that having my grandmother along for the ride was this portal to the past.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get as far away as I could, not only in physical space to the teaching hospital, but also in time.
And,
And so,
and back to a time, right, where you felt
yeah,
safe and full of wonder, and yeah,
yeah,
grandmother being the only one that would take her shoes off, right, and get in the stream with you, and so that's quite the connection there. Wow.
but had never been camping.
But had never been camping, had never
Yeah,
seen a mountain, an ocean.
right.
That's so remarkable, and what a powerhouse of a woman to be like, sure, let's go.
Yeah, and and I think that she deserves credit for that, because
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I get a lot of credit for having taken her there, but I think a lot of 85-year-old women, 85-year-old people, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even 75-year-old people would say, "Are you kidding? Go with somebody your own age." I'm quite comfortable in
Right.
my chair, but she's not really wired that way. And I think that she was tired of sitting on her front porch and taking
Mm-hmm.
daily walks in the cemetery. And she was just open to it. And
Yeah.
I say it in the first page. I'm looking at her hands like, oh, I forgot how old she is. And
Yeah.
how is she really going to feel when we get down there and we're putting this tent together at 2 a.m. in the rain?
Right.
I didn't know.
Yeah. And you found out quick, huh? And kept finding out. And
Well, yeah. And that's the beginning of the journey. It was supposed to be a one and done weekend camping trip, take that future
mm-hmm.
regret off the list, reset my brain a little bit. And it became so much more. I mean, it exceeded my expectations in every way. And that was entirely due to her spirit and how she
Mm-hmm.
showed up in that moment for me.
That's so amazing. That's so powerful. I wanted to, if I may, read a little section of the book. We talk a lot about in on this podcast about nature being a mirror, how it holds us. Where is my page? Here we go. I got to put my glasses on because that's just what happens now.
I hear you.
So, I'm going to just read a couple sentences here, and then we can talk about, nature as a co-therapist, we say here, and how it mirrors ourselves and the metaphor that it offers and all of that. But you say here, nothing stays the same here. And then you go on to say, Harvard sociobiologist E.O. Wilson theorized that our physical and psychological health are diminished when we don't engage with the natural world. Losing that bond robs us of wisdom. Time marches forward and we call it progress. But without kinship to our elders and forests, do we really know who we are? We are hardwired for connection to the land and to those who came before us. The morning I asked Grandma Joy to join me in the Smokies, I knew what was missing. And I thought that was just beautiful and like so said so well. What do you think about what made you put that in there? How do you feel about that? What do you got, you know?
Well, it's interesting. E.O. Wilson came to Muskingum College, now Muskingum University, near my hometown when I was young, when I was in high school.
Okay.
And man, what a genius.
Mm.
But so I followed his life and his work
Okay.
and read the biophilia hypothesis, which really, to me, was so affirming,
Yeah.
in every possible way. I mean, it really gets to the core of who we are as human beings, and you know, the ego of the modern human being thinking that we are separate
Right.
from nature, and then we have all these problems that are uniquely human that other species don't experience, and well, we wonder why that is. You know, we've created. Maybe I'm sorry if I sound hyperbolic, but I think we've created a hellscape for
Well, it
ourselves in being
keeps
so
looking more and more
disconnected
that
from
way.
nature. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And so I think it just reiterated. It was just one of the many. That was Jane Goodall was another one in all of her work, of
Mhm.
course, and there were others. But
There's a lot now, right? So many
yeah,
people that are not just, you know, hypothesizing or any of that or theorizing, but it's like there's concrete evidence now to support all of this.
yes. And so I wasn't. I think at the time looking for, I wasn't on a self-help journey at that point. I was much younger, but it just affirmed for me that, yeah, when you're not including that in your life, you're going to suffer. And so I think it just affirmed for me that you need to make sure that you spend at least an hour a day in the woods. And for the most part, I've been able to do that throughout my life.
Yeah, we have a couple of concepts. We talk about. I'm a nature informed therapist, right, and talk a lot about the concept of being held by nature.
Mm.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Being held by nature is a way to support your healing and that of the relationship between you and your grandmother, right? We're out there, you're out there, like in the Smokies, for example, and there's this being, if you will, kind of to personify nature that is there holding you and making you feel safe, as you've alluded to from your childhood, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not a genetic expert by any means, but I certainly think that the DNA I think that is, there's memory there, right? There's
Absolutely.
and so yeah, it's all subconscious when we're going about our daily lives and we're doing all these things that are completely, you know, foreign to the ancient self,
Hmm.
to the ancestral self that lives
Yeah.
inside us in our DNA. And so, yeah, I just think, I think 9 to 5, right? Whether you're in a cubicle or inside a hospital, working as a doctor, whatever it is, if it's not out there, I think there's um, this dissonance, this
Yeah.
just
Good
this.
choice of words.
I'm not where I should be, and so yeah, I think we're being the opposite of being held, is being assaulted.
Right. Yeah.
And even if it feels innocent or innocuous because it's just working on a computer or scrolling on your iPhone or whatever
Yeah.
you're doing to numb or to keep yourself occupied, it's certainly not
Correct.
giving what
No.
you think it is. Not in the way that comes so easily, in my experience, when you're walking through a forest or canoeing down a stream or sitting on a cliff edge watching the sunrise or staring up at the stars in a place where
Right.
you can actually see them.
Yeah. I
And
think
then
that's,
yeah, and
go
I
ahead.
think that's our ancestor. I think we're feeding that part of ourselves that remembered that life was a miracle.
Yeah. We spent some of what I say is we spent what is 175,000 years outdoors, right? And we spent the last couple hundred indoors. There's a reason why it is in our DNA. Why like we feel there's physiological responses. It's
Right.
measurable physiological responses to being outdoors. And these days, you're talking about scrolling on the iPhone. It's all about the instant dopamine hits, which we mistake for comfort, which we mistake for safety and but that doesn't last. It's the more you get, the more you need. It's not the same as going for a walk in nature, for going for a hike on the trail. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's depleting too. If
Yeah.
nobody feels good after they
Good
finish the whole
point.
bag of Doritos. Nobody feels good after they've, when they get that notification on their phone that they were on their phone an average of 14 hours a day
Right. Right.
over the last week.
Yeah. That's,
What did you really accomplish? What did you really do to nourish yourself?
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
It's very, for some people, they've never done it a day in their life.
Right. It's
So
very true.
I just look at all the different, I don't have all the answers. Clearly I don't,
Yeah.
but I just know that, that we've lost our way as a species.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And it's, hope is not lost, but you know,
You
it's
have to
going to
want
take
it for
some effort.
yourself. Yeah.
What? Yeah.
You have to want it for yourself. I mean, that's
Yes,
the
you do.
only, and that's it. And if you inspire some other people to follow your lead, that's great. But, your agency over your life is what matters for your experience. I mean, you're here and, this is your life to craft in whatever way that you want. So I think, yeah, I mean, we had no mountains in Southeast Ohio, but we did have some hills,
Hmm.
and we took advantage of those hills as a child and those streams. And it was enough to know that that was something that mattered to us. And then the Smokies was this whole
Yeah.
other, gate that opened that we stepped through. And, and then it was kind of, I was really transformed. There were very few moments in my life where I felt like a switch was flipped and that I was able to make a radical change in my perception of life and, my place in it,
Hmm.
like that trip did.
That's
And once
amazing.
again, it was remembering, it was falling asleep in a tent in the tent that night and hearing the water careening over the cobbles, just like so many nights that I spent camping along the AT, and and just and then, like I said, climbing that mountain with my grandmother. She didn't just see her first mountain; she climbed one too,
Yes.
and then showed up for me around the campfire and really talk about being held, right? Not
Right.
physically, but just knowing that my grandmother saw me for who I was and had my back and knew that I didn't need to carry that burden anymore of closeting myself from her or closeting myself in the sense of struggling mental
Right.
health. I was in the closet that way too.
Sure. Sure.
I didn't want anybody in my class to perceive me as incompetent, not up to the standards of the profession, which is why so many, people in caregiving professions, medical professions, oftentimes burn out and suffer so much to the point that they are willing to take their own lives
Right.
because, the culture until recently has never had, a poster child for the power of vulnerability and
Mm.
being honest about our suffering. That we're hardwired some in many ways from the time we're this tall. We say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a veterinarian, that you must be perfect. Of course you
Right.
must be perfect, or how are you going to get in? How are you going to get a seat in that highly competitive, class and accomplish your dream career? And if you're not absolutely perfect, and perfect people don't have self-doubt, perfect people don't, have depression.
Mm.
So who are you going to tell if
Right.
if that's what you're feeling? If
Right.
everything that you've ever been told is that you must not feel that way at all, and if I'm feeling that way, there's something uniquely wrong with me.
Yeah. That's such a important point. How do you how the toll that it takes, right? You're talking about, right? And the perfection that we feel we have to maintain in school, right? As you're seeking these things out. And then once you graduate and you become, that carries on that those perfectionistic tendencies. How does nature help you heal with that? Do we talk about, just like we were saying, going on a walk and whatnot, but
For me, it's as simple as it puts all of that, you filter all of that stuff that you've taken as truth
mm,
and as is sort of like the center of your purpose and your existence in life. And you almost can laugh at it in a way that you got swept away in this current of, um, of human constructed stress, right? It's not, it's not really, I mean, at the end of the day, most of us, like, we're on the planet to stay alive and,
mm,
you know, find food, find water,
right.
reproduce.
So
but
reptilian nature to our existence, right?
but hopefully also enjoy life
Yeah.
and just be.
And
And
just
and
be.
so I think that it's so hard to turn the volume down on the inner dialogue. And and especially when your phone's dinging and you've got
Right.
Microsoft Teams and you've got uh, email and you've got text messaging. And, we used to, I really, I'm starting to feel really old simply because I remember the days when if you weren't home, you didn't have to answer a,
Right.
a telephone. And, I think that we've really, that convenience and so forth has come with a lot of invasion and a lot of suffering that people don't recognize as such. And
Absolutely.
so if you can be in a national park where there's no cell tower around and no one can call you, man, boy, does that feel good, right?
It
It's
really
just,
does.
yeah,
I've got I have an annual camping trip I go on, and it's next week, and I leave Saturday. I'm super excited, to just go and spend a week to my two favorite families, the 10 of us this year, and the kids, their favorite trip. They asked for it, and it's all about connection. It's about
yeah,
disconnection so that we can reconnect with
exactly.
nature, with each other, with all of that. And I wanted to ask you, so, you 63 national parks, they're national parks because of the majestic nature and the awe-inspiring, like, views and experiences that you have there. Um, do you think awe and wonder helped you kind of feel a shared sense of connection to something larger than yourself and between you and Grandma Joy?
Yeah, both. Once again, I think that our worlds become very small sometimes, and we really we sort of think of our lives within the confines of what is my job,
Right.
who, what is my status, how much power do I have within this company that I work for, what are
Mm-hmm.
my long-term prospects at this company, am I ever going to be important enough to get that promotion, or valued enough to get that promotion, all these things that we seek, we're seeking validation for these, power and money basically.
Right.
And then the ability to accumulate things that make our lives more comfortable, so called, or, creature comforts and things like that. But
Creature comforts. Yeah.
yeah, and yet you never feel richer than when you have that serenity
Mm.
and that presence that
Yeah.
that nature so easily hands us.
Absolutely.
And
And the
so,
the
yeah, go ahead.
the sense of the smallness that you feel, but it's not a diminished smallness, right? It's a connected, you feel part of something larger and bigger,
It's a
and it feels
yeah,
empowering.
yeah, it's a surrender.
Yeah.
It's a
Love
yeah,
that.
the oneness, right? The oneness
Yeah.
takes away for me, it takes away a lot of the anxiety that I used to feel about death. And funny, yeah, it's interesting. I had suicidal ideation, but I was also afraid to die, right? Which is probably why I didn't do it.
Mm,
Um,
thankfully.
yeah, thankfully. But it's yeah, there's there's so I think those lessons of nature, those that, and I kind of talk about it a lot. I mean, every class, or every they said, or my editor said that, you know, as I was going through each of these spaces, you know, those parks were, or those lands were classrooms, and
Mhm.
those lessons are all over the place, and
Yeah.
I've tasted a fraction of them, uh, and which is why it's so exciting every time I return, because
I love that.
I know that it's going to allow more truths to come through me, and I can take those lessons with me. And as far as my relationship with my grandmother, it, boy, she and I are wired differently, and I think she has her own spiritual lens on life that is
Mhm.
very different than mine. I think that she finds nature beautiful, and I'm sure I know that she found it healing. I just don't think she's processing it at this in the same intense with the same intensity that I am.
Right.
But when we were in Congaree National Park, for example, which is, every time that we talk about, sometimes people will ask, what are some of your favorite national parks? And she brings up Congaree, and people are like, what? Are you kidding me? That was one of my least favorite parks. And maybe they were arachnophobic or something like that, because there are a lot of big spiders there.
Okay.
But yeah, but it's a boardwalk trail, in this bottomland forest in South Carolina. And it's a national park because most of that land had been drained and logged, and
Right.
not much of it left. But we walked through. We were lucky to be there in the fall when everything was still green, but it wasn't humid, and the mosquito meter was at level 2, not 6. Which
Right.
you walk into the visitor center, and there's a mosquito meter that could be anywhere from 0 to war zone, and we were at a comfortable 2. And we were walking through that forest, and we heard the distant tapping of a woodpecker. But we were looking at these beautiful spider webs, and they were gilded in the
Wow.
way the sunlight was coming through them. And she was just marveling at the ingenuity of these spiders. And I mean, there were some of them were as big as my hand, but
Wow.
she found them beautiful. And we started, there was a piece in there, and she told me, I mean, I'm not religious, but my grandmother is, and she said that she could feel the Lord in there. And these memories came back of her children, and she had lost 2 of her 3 sons in middle age.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it just, it opened up this part of her heart and her mind that I had never seen before. And it allowed her to feel really, I think for the first time in years, truly connected to her deceased children. And she was being healed
Yeah.
in real time. And
Mm.
then, sorry to spoil the end of the chapter, but the woodpecker appeared, and I began to research them, and I learned that the Native Americans considered the pileated woodpecker this, one of the rare species that could be a messenger
Wow.
between this life and whatever is on the other side.
Right.
And
That's beautiful.
it gives me chills
Yeah.
now,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it really did happen that way.
Yeah.
And I might not have connected the dots if I hadn't been looking for it, but to me, it was real. It felt real, and what I saw happening in my grandmother was real, and it provided a chance for us to connect in that way. She didn't really get to grieve her youngest son because he
Mhm.
was a drug addict and he died of an overdose. And where we're from, there's so much shame attached to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I say in the book, there weren't people dropping off casseroles for a big potluck, and
That's right. Yeah.
she didn't have this long line of people that were hugging her and telling her how sorry they were that she lost her son. She had to do that in a private way. And for me, that woodpecker
Yeah.
was a messenger saying that that your grief was real and it mattered, and he felt it. And
Yeah.
and the world mourns him. even if they didn't know him, the fact that we lost this young man to a disease, and that you never really got to, um, yeah, because for her, that was still just the little boy
Yeah,
that was
always.
full of
Yeah,
innocence and potential,
that's
And
so
so
powerful.
I hope that in other ways that maybe she could never fill me in on, that she was being healed along the way too. But
Yeah,
once again, it's all in how you're walking. It's sort of the expectation and the openness that you have.
the openness. Yeah,
And yeah, and I do think that oftentimes maybe for her it was just a beautiful drive, and that's okay.
and that's
Um,
okay.
yeah,
I know you both had a lot of deep in conversations. Some where you wanted more than she was willing to, um, but intensity in a way. You mentioned fire earlier. Here's where I'm going. And did you ever find that sitting around a fire kind of facilitated a sense of calm? I read somewhere that the unpredictable nature of flames dancing kind of sets people at a sense of calm that opens the door for more in-depth and difficult conversations. Did you have any experiences like that? I don't know
yeah.
that
No,
the science
actually,
is, I don't know this about the science behind that, but it's a really interesting concept.
no, my mind is going in a million directions, so you might have to rein me in.
Okay.
Uh, because my when I was on the AT, I was sort of well known for being able to make fire, even when everything was waterlogged.
That's
And
a talent.
yeah, and my trail name was Hellbender, which is about a salamander, but it also sort of, I don't know, but there's a fiery image with that too. And
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, and there's a scene that I wrote that didn't make the book, and I really regret it now, because making fire is so important to me,
Yeah.
because I think of the community that came with it
Oh,
after it was
wow.
built, and the peace and the security and the comfort that came when you're
Mm.
out in the elements. And it was so, I should have put this in the book. I'm so mad at myself that I didn't put this in the book, because when we were in Mount Rainier National Park with two of my friends from home that lived out there, I was making a fire at the end of the day, and Grandma Joy was, and I was struggling just a little bit, but I knew that I could get there. The twigs were damp, and I needed to get enough little twigs to
Mm-hmm.
smoke out, or to get some of the water off, and then we'd be cooking, so to speak. And she was standing over me, and she was nitpicking it, and and trying to tell me what to do, my sense of self-worth, again, academia, yes, but for some, that fire building potential in me mattered way more than I knew. and
Mm.
and we got in a big fight. Like, I snapped at her, and it planted a seed in my mind that was going to plant the seed for the big fight that ended up happening in Utah. I
Yeah.
should put this
Yeah.
in the book. You've got me like really thinking about.
Go for it. Yeah.
But yeah, there's this magic that I've always felt, and it's interesting. The only fire scene in the book is when she just comes out of the blue in the Smokies and says, "Your grandfather and I always knew you were gay," and I'm like, for 35
Right. Right.
years you knew this, and you never said anything.
That's actually the scene that made me think of this question. I was just like, cause that I read this piece about, they were specific about the flames and the unpredictable nature, and you kind of settle into this.
It's a
Um,
hypnosis.
yes.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and apparently she was experiencing that
Yeah.
too. And thinking back on the she and her, I don't know what her inner dialogue was, but I can surmise that it might have been, Brad's in a really dark place right now, and he's got all this stuff on his mind, and I know, I bet he's like, keeping this from me, and it's causing him anxiety too. And gosh, I've known from the time you went with trick or treating as Dolly Parton, like that kind of thing. And it's just, yeah. But then she leaves. She just says, like, "Yeah, I always knew you were gay. God love you." And off to the tent she went and went to
Right.
bed. And I'm just sitting there. I put another log on the fire, and I'm just, listening to the ember, or watching the embers glow, and listening to the crackles and
Yeah.
everything, and imagining and reliving all of the transformation that I experienced on the AT, and and what I was experiencing in that moment, which was this profound sense of relief and potential for our relationship. because
Yeah.
if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know if there would have been a second national park after that. But it was the magic of the experience of watching this 85-year-old woman climb a mountain and sleep in a tent for the first
Hmm.
time and laugh all the time, the whole time.
Yeah.
And then also for her to rip this proverbial Band-Aid off of my wound and say, you don't need to carry that weight anymore. Like, you've got enough on your plate, Brad.
Right.
Go back to vet school and just know that you're loved and and supported.
Yeah.
And I do think the fire facilitated that moment. But yeah, I hope that I connected all of the dots there for you.
You
But it's
absolutely did. Absolutely. Many dots but they all came together and crystallized into this
but
openness and peace and
fire has always been
insight.
life. Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
that was a
It's
major
archaic,
driver of
right?
our evolution.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Thank you for all that. And I know what you mean about that scene in the, what
That I
was it,
didn't
Mount
put in.
Rainier? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a story that you carry with you, you know,
Well,
and,
you just planted the seed for perhaps a feature article that I can write for
there we go.
the Atlantic or something. Well, maybe we'll manifest that, because I do think that was the most important story that wasn't. It was just, you know, the
Yeah.
next chapter was due, and we moved on, and
Yeah.
I didn't get back to it. But I do think that it was a really important moment in the evolution of our relationship. She still remembers it. Of course,
Oh,
she remembers,
wow. Okay.
but she only thinks of it as Brad was really mean that day, and he can be such a grump sometimes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so what do you, all right. Overall, right? What do you think the big lessons that you and Grandma Joy have taken from the trip, and how has those lessons, you know, if you pick one or two of them, I'm sure there are many, but
yeah,
how it helps you heal, grow, and like individually together? I mean, it's a big question, I know, but
yeah, yeah. Well, I think one of the most important lessons that I learned, and I it came to me early on in the California redwoods,
mm,
is this whole idea of you're only as old as the being that you're standing next to. It's all relative, right?
mm-hmm,
So when we think about human to human, a 51-year age gap seems um, insurmountable in terms of forming a friendship, or and only because that's the way our culture is. You don't go
right,
into a bar often and see a bunch of 80-year-olds hanging out with 20-year-olds.
correct,
And those are the two, statistically speaking, according to our former U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, and his Surgeon General's report on the epidemic of loneliness and social isolation in America, the two loneliest groups are the elderly and people in their 20s.
mm,
And so, yes, watching my grandmother walk through this redwood forest and put her hand into the fissures of the bark and look up at this massive, beautiful
yeah,
being, I thought, really, like, in redwood years, we're the same age. We're not that far apart at all. Society makes you feel that way, but no, why? And we went viral because, like, 51-year age gap, plus they're hiking and rolling down sand dunes and
right, camping, and
all this. Yeah,
yeah,
nobody.
all the things,
Yeah, that is such a rare thing in our society, that this private journey that I thought nothing of, other than my grandma's a cool lady and
yeah.
I don't have anybody else to travel with, and this is making me feel good. So, well, yeah, let's just go for it. Why not her?
Mm-hmm.
It never struck me as absurd.
I love that.
And yet when the media caught wind of this after we were halfway through our goal, it went all over the world. It was a
Yeah.
global viral story. And so, but in that moment, long before we went viral, I just thought, yeah, we're on the right path. Like, we're 51 years, who cares? And then, right before that, in Glacier National Park, a 4-year-old girl went, we were watching the moose at Fisher Cap Lake in Glacier National Park at dusk. and I was preoccupied with trying to photograph the moose. And then I looked back, and this little 4-year-old girl that was wearing similar polka dotted fleece
That's right.
sat next to her, and she didn't even speak English. And she was, 4 years old and 87. Yeah. And she had binoculars. The little girl had binoculars, and she was looking through them, and just, with the face of awe and joy. And she looked at my grandma, and they're pointing and they're smiling. And she hands my grandmother the binoculars, and then so she can have a turn. And it went back and forth and back and forth. And that also reminded me, I mean, it was visual evidence
Mm-hmm.
that is very normal to see people that are older as safe and wise, and somebody that you would want to share an experience like that with, and with whom you'd want to share that experience. And I just was so enraptured by their friendship that was burgeoning right there on the shores of that lake.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way when I was a kid. My earliest memory, my very first memory of conscious existence on planet Earth is, I feel like I awoke to the world and life by watching these seagulls flying above my head on a lake above a lake in Canada. We just crossed over the border. My parents, my dad and my grandfather were fishermen, and we went to this fishing camp, and I remember the seagulls flying around, and I remember Grandma Joy was with me, and she put a few breadcrumbs on the sand, and the seagulls touched down in front of me, and I saw these animals fly. And, that was my introduction to life. That's my earliest memory. Welcome to Earth. I was 2.5 years old.
Wow.
But she was my friend, a friend who would a few years later take me into the stream and catch crawdads and frogs. And then all these years later, I'm in the driver's seat, taking her to places she'd never heard of, and opening her. Every time you go to a national park, and Joshua Tree, for example, you've never, unless you go there, you can't imagine that you can experience a place like that on planet Earth. And we have so many of them just in the United States.
Oh yeah.
White Sands National Park, Acadia, Utah. Utah as a whole state. Forget the national parks.
Yeah. I was telling you before that, I think before we started recording, that I went to Yosemite last year, and I've been to 5 national parks. I have a trip planning next year where we're going to hit 12 more. I want to hit as many as I can. I don't think I'll do 63, but I want to hit a lot. And anyway, Yosemite last year, and I walk up to that pull off that everyone goes to, overlooking the valley. And really, like a tear just comes down out of my eye. And it's just like the sheer grandeur and beauty and it's awe, it's amazing.
Yeah, because you hadn't seen it before.
I had nothing ever like that. That was just the Smokies, like a special nostalgic place in my heart, right? And it's beautiful, and there's amazing views, and there's all of that stuff. But the granite, El Capitan, just everything, just the Half Dome, all of it. I was like just in awe and just really taken aback in a really good way.
Oh, I get it. And I think once again, it's this immediate, the dopamine of getting a like on your Instagram post versus that.
Yeah.
Right. It really puts it in perspective. And I think that's what kept us going, is that it just reminded us that there's still so much to explore and discover. And that's that's the magic sauce of life.
Love it. Magic sauce. Yes.
I think it is. Just that, oh man, I haven't felt this before. I've never seen something like this. Wow. This is where I live. Yeah. It's here.
It is.
And it belongs to all of us.
I love that. It's absolutely remarkable. I got one last nugget of wisdom. If you had one thing, right? One thing, you and Grandma Joy learned on your experience that you could kind of leave, one instruction for us, nugget of wisdom, instruction, however you want to see that. What do you think?
Well, the seemingly impossible next step that you've told yourself is seemingly impossible may not, it might be impossible, but if you don't take that arthritic step forward and try, then you have zero chance of tasting the joy that that moment may hold for you. And I think that's the different, that's the magic of Grandma Joy. I think it's not that her knees are uniquely different at age 96. Now she's
Yeah.
96 today.
Wow.
And she's just traveled to 30 plus cities with me all around the country on this book tour with more to
Incredible.
come. We get
Yeah.
3 days. She's comfortably at home right now, resting
Good
after
for
a
her.
long road trip.
Right.
But we did show the world that if you wanted to, you could start at age 85 and visit all 63 U.S. national parks, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be a driving Miss Daisy experience. You could actually roll down a sand dune along the way. You could whitewater raft, class 3 rapids in Wrangell St. Elias in Alaska if you wanted to, if you felt like that life jacket was enough to get you down the
and holding on to you and you hold on to her.
And a really, really talented guide.
Yes.
And yeah, you could sleep in a tent and fall off the air mattress and just laugh about it. And get back on and say, oh, that was crazy, wasn't it? And not say, I'm never doing this again. I think that's she's 96. I'm not going to have her in my passenger seat forever.
Right.
Certainly, I don't know. Yeah. She could be here at 105, but at any rate, what I do know is that at 85, when so many people are on this downward trajectory with their physical and mental health, that I actually did witness my grandmother becoming more coordinated. I watched her balance improve. I watched her physical health and her endurance improve. And I watched her make friends across every potential dividing line that you could think of with people from all around the world, people that she stays in contact with to this day that are her friends. And yes, she was able to become less lonely and more physically and mentally healthy, not just because of nature, although that was a major player here, but because of all of the abundance that nature offered her, which was this opportunity for new experiences that pushed her outside of her comfort zone, her ability to develop new friends at an age when most people are, if they're still here, they've outlived most of the people that they ever knew. And that was what her life was before. And so, yes, the idea that you can, at 85 or any age, if you so choose, show up for your life. Show up for your life and know that you can write a new chapter of adventure if you want to. And it doesn't mean that your knees aren't going to hurt. And if you're in a wheelchair, it may mean that you can't climb some mountains, but it doesn't mean that you can't experience the majesty of a national park and gain that perspective and that healing that you so desire. It's there for you if you want it.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was beautiful. I really can't thank you enough for this book. Please, everyone, I really, really recommend this book. It was the arc that you take us through, emotions, experiences, the way, and it really highlights that nature can be a co-therapist, how important, and we are nature. I want to highlight that, right? We are part of, like you said in the beginning, we are nature. So those connections with other people, the co-navigating that nature can do for us as we grow and connect and heal. Really powerful. Thank you so much for this book. It's a real gift.
It means the world to me to hear you say that. Thank you for reading it, and thanks for sharing the message with everyone.
Absolutely. It's a Simon & Schuster book, right? Yep. I want to plug like local bookstores, indie bookstores, please. They're all more than happy to get these copies for us. You know, my local one here is the Curio Room in Mount Kisco, New York. What Do you
And you
have
can order,
any
you can go to bookshop.org
bookshop.org,
and
right?
order through your independent bookstore anywhere in the country.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you
And
for
in,
saying that.
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, what else is new? What's coming up? Plugs? What should
Well,
we?
we're calling this book tour. I wanted it to be more than a book tour because there's so much healing in connecting with people.
Mhm.
And I wrote this book to do that. I wrote this book so that I could um, basically hand people a mirror that they
Yeah, I
can
love that.
evaluate their own trauma through, or the, and just look at their relationships in their life. And, I say all the time, I'm not preachy in this book. I'm not saying that you must go
No,
out and forgive people.
not at all.
It's not that. It's a very individual choice, and every relationship has its own dynamics and potential or lack of potential. And certainly there are malignant narcissists and sociopaths and sexual
Yep.
abusers and all types of people that need to be permanently barred from our lives. I get it. But there are a lot of people that just have complicated relationships with their parents and their grandparents, and they just want to find a way to move through it and harness um some love and some potential for healing with those people. And that's worthy of doing I think it's worth inquiring about. And
Absolutely.
maybe you haven't spoken to somebody in 10 years, and a lot can change over 10 years, and you might discover that there's a path forward for that relationship. But also, as you said, people that haven't ever considered going to a national park or doing a weekend camping trip, and to maybe what I'm doing right now isn't working in life. And so to be able to go out on the road and just realize that all the vulnerability that I put into that book, as hard as it
Mhm.
was, it's rewarding me now, because it's allowing people to see themselves in my story, and then they feel comfortable opening up to me. And
Yes.
even if it's a 5-minute conversation in the book signing line, it's a shared humanity that we both, it's bidirectional, and we're both helping each other heal our wounds. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And so most book tours aren't going to Missoula, Montana, and some of these
Right.
places that I'm going, but people are showing up everywhere. And
Yeah.
so I'm calling the tour Healing Across America, and we're trying to go to all 50 states. And
Wow.
the book came out a month and a half ago, and we've already done 20 states. We've appeared in 20 states, and plus Washington D.C.
Yeah.
at Politics and Prose, and we're just going to keep going. And it might carry through into the paperback tour, but that's what we're doing right now. And we've also been on a journey to go to all 7 continents. And so we're
Wow.
headed to Thailand in the fall,
Wow.
and that will be our 6th continent. And I'm trying to figure out the logistics if we want to just go ahead and skip over to Australia and knock that 7th continent off the list while we're over there, so we don't have to do
Wow.
that flight again.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a long flight.
yes, especially if you're 96 and you're not allowed
Yes.
to sleep for hours and hours and hours, because you got to walk around the plane every
Yep.
hour to avoid blood clots. So I
Correct.
think we'll probably knock off, like, finish that 7 continent goal this
That's
year.
amazing.
And I also do,
Wow.
and I'm taking her back to South Africa. We do a rhino conservation mission through Global Protagonists,
Hmm.
this group that I'm involved with. And last year we raised $30,000, and we dehorned 20 rhinos in the Greater Kruger, which is a part of South Africa where the rhinos are under immense poaching pressure. And so we saw
Yeah.
off the horn, which takes the bounty temporarily off of their head. And we do the whole herd, and then we disseminate that information to the local community so that they know it's a fool's errand to go in there and kill those rhinos. And it does work, but it has
That's
to be,
great.
it has to be done over and over and over again. So we're going
Mm.
to go back to South Africa in October, and Grandma Joy is a part of that team.
I
So,
love it. What
we've got all
about
kinds of things planned.
this?
My
Awesome.
philosophy is just put things on the calendar, and try to stick to it, and don't think about death. Don't think about
Yeah.
what are the chances that,
Be in the moment, be present, enjoy
yeah,
where you are. What about how do people get information about these appearances? Instagram, websites, things
sure.
like that.
Yeah. You can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Grandma Joy's Road Trip, all one
Okay.
word. And then my website is drbradryan.com. That's DOCTOR, bradryan.com. And yeah, we'll have our bookstore appearances there. And if anybody wants to go with us to South Africa to be a part of the Rhino mission in October, we have some seats available for that as well.
Wow. Well, this will all be live linked in the show notes, so everyone can just click and go and check you out.
Nice.
Again, thank you so much, Brad. Please give my best to Grandma Joy, and really, you both just true inspirations and models for what healing can look like, because it doesn't have to look the same for everybody, and you have absolutely proven that.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. It was so lovely to have this conversation with you, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for listening to The Nature of Mental Health. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, rate, and share the show. It helps others find their way to this community. For more resources, visit riverstonementalhealth.com. Until next time, notice the small spaces where nature meets your day. Stay curious, and may you find resilience in every season.